In this video, we're going to discuss a feature called linked companies. Now, as a forewarning, linked companies is a relatively advanced feature. So, what are linked companies? Let's assume for a moment in time that you might run a franchise. Let's say you own a series of McDonald's and you want to use Simple and Out to make sure that your employees are clocking in and clocking out. If you're doing something like that where you have all of these different branches or offices or different sites or stores, you might not want the people in one store to be able to see the users in another store. So employees in one store can only see their board with their employees, and employees in a different store can only see the ones in that store. Now, right now, you can do this in Simple and Out, but of course, it involves you setting up multiple organizations. And this has two big drawbacks. One drawback is that you have to have separate logins because you can only use your email address for one login in Simple and Out, period. So that means you have to have two different sign-ins with two different email addresses, potentially two different passwords to access your two different companies. So that's a little cumbersome. The second thing is billing. Of course, because you have this set up as two completely different organizations, then the billing is in two completely different places. So that means you're getting billed at different times, possibly, different days or different cycles. The other issue is one of credit cards. If you have a credit card and it expires, you're likely going to have that same expired card in two different places, and you're going to have to go update that in two different places. Now, that sounds cumbersome, and it is, and it could also be an issue, but imagine what would happen if you had 20 branches or 30 stores. Then it stops being cumbersome and it becomes prohibitive. So to solve these problems, we have a feature called linked companies in Simple and Out. And linked companies allow you to have a master company control several sub-companies or companies underneath the master company. You can then consolidate all of your billing into the master company, and one login for the master company allows you to pop in and see the boards and the companies below, change settings, do things of that nature. Now, every single one of the sub-companies is considered its own organization. It can't be seen from other people outside in the other sub-companies. You achieve that strict separation. So let's go ahead and see how that works practically here in Simple and Out. So I'm logged in as our test company, Arlington Financial. For the purposes of this demo, let's consider Arlington Financial as a large banking institution, and we're going to have several different branches. So here in our company, we're going to assume that these are the people who are the big poobahs, the big people, the people who can see all of the different branches. So they're all going to be organized into this one situation here. So if I click on settings in the upper right, and then down the left-hand side, I'll click on linked companies. And so here's our linked companies with, of course, just a button. We don't have any linked companies yet, but let's go ahead and let's create one. So we're going to create a new linked company. So the first thing we have to do is give this linked company a name. We're going to call this branch A. So we'll call this our first branch, or branch A. Now, we also have to choose a plan. Now, the good thing about choosing a plan is that every company can have its own plan. So that means you can drop a company. You can have a basic company maybe with only 8 or 10 users, and then you can have a Pro 250 company for maybe a bigger branch that you have. You can choose the size that's right for you. And then we have to create the first user. Now, just like a regular company, every linked company needs to have an administrator, a user who could administrate their organization. The key difference in an administrator of a sub-company is that while they can make a lot of changes and they can add users to their own sub-company and so on and so forth, they won't be able to delete the organization, and they won't be able to change the organization's billing or plans. Those things are controlled by the master company, by the admin users in the master. So here, let's go ahead and add our first user. We'll call this branch manager, we'll call this, manager. And we'll say branch, I keep typing my own name, don't I? Manager at, and we'll say Arlington Financial. Okay. Now, keep in mind, again, we won't set the user's password. The password will be set by the user when they get the invite email, and we'll hit create the company. Now that our company has been created, let's go ahead and see what we can do with that. So you could create as many companies as you like, of course. In this case, we're just going to create this one. But now we have a button here called switch. And if I click the switch button, we will switch into the subcompany. So right now we're actually looking at the subcompany. You'll see that this thing says current. You'll see I have a link to return to the Arlington Financial master company later if I wish. But you'll also notice that up here we have a name change. Now it says Branch A and then Arlington Financial in small letters, basically the name of the master company. And if I click on this, we'll notice that I'm now looking not at my board, but instead at Branch A's board. And Branch A only has one user, the user I just added, the branch manager. You'll also notice that over here on the right-hand side, I do not have a bunch of stuff that I usually have in my own board. If I was looking at my own board, here I'd have my information, my current status, and ability to change my status. Since we're looking at a subcompany, we don't have that anymore because, of course, I wouldn't be changing my status here. I'm looking in on, I'm switching into a smaller subcompany to be able to see what's going on. So now, as an administrative user at the master company, I'm allowed to switch into these subcompanies, and I'm allowed to basically do a lot of whatever I like. So here I could add users if I wanted to add users instead of leaving it to the branch manager. I can look in on our branch managers by clicking on their things, looking at their statuses. I could go ahead and change or run reports. So if I'm in charge of payroll, I could run the payroll reports for Branch A right now. The other thing I can do is I could go ahead and click on settings. And that allows me to make some settings changes. You'll notice here, I'm looking at my profile, and this is actually my profile information with a note on here saying you're currently viewing a link company, but this is still your personal profile. So we do let you change that even though you're looking at a subcompany. But now the company settings, these are all the settings for the subcompany. So you'll notice it's Branch A. And I can change these settings. Because of the strict separation in subcompanies, every subcompany can have its own settings. So this means one subcompany, maybe you want to, is full of salespeople and they need to have access to geofences. So we'll create some geofences for them because they're constantly on the move. Maybe another subcompany is full of some people who are punching a clock in a retail setting. And so we want to take away the permission from those people, and we're going to use time clock and make them interface with time clock to scan themselves in or out. All of these things can be changed independently from each individual subcompany. So it allows you a lot of power. Again, strict separation in the subcompanies. None of them know about the other ones, but you can hop into every one of them and do things you need to do. So finally, I'm going to show you just switching back to our board. So if I go back to our linked companies here, I can switch back, return to Arlington Financial, which is the parent company. Now we're back on the parent company. You'll notice the name up here changed. And now I can come back over here and see my board and my status information again. So that's linked companies, a way to achieve that strict separation for very large organizations.